your beer and grab him a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brandon T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. Format of the show, if you're new to the show, I'm sober now, but one of my favorite things to do when I was drinking was be a good drinking buddy. Share stories, goals, dreams, things like that. And I still enjoy doing that from time to time. I'm going to have a guest on normally. This week is no exception. I am joined by the Godfather of Daytona comedy, one of the funniest people I know, Mr. Zach Bennett. What's going on, man?
Hello. That is quite an intro to live up to. I don't care for it. Should I be talking louder? I see that this is nice to be able to see the levels while we talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is forcing me to not mumble. I'm like, I have to match your spikes.
Yes.
Ha! Oh, that too much, see? All right, we're pulling back.
So, Zach, go ahead, promote anything you want to promote, plug anything you want to plug. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, a lot of people have been asking me, how's comedy? And to that I say, manual labor's going great. Because comedy's all but dead right now.
For you, because you started that show at the Nog and they took it over, but you're not doing it.
Well, I told them, I mean, it was with my blessing. It wasn't like,
okay.
Yeah.
I thought they were just like, we're taking this.
No, they still wanted to do shows, and I didn't feel like it was a good idea, but I'm not going to tell them it's Daytona. What are you going to, like, if they couldn't have done it at the Nog, they would have just done it in a fucking alley or something, so it doesn't matter. But, yeah, so they're still doing shows at Tear Dog Irish Pub, whether or not you feel comfortable going out to a show or not, you should still go out there, grab a beer.
Beautiful Daytona Beach right there on International Speedway Boulevard.
Beautiful Daytona Beach. If you're ever there for some reason, like drugs or to identify a body, just stop by the Nog and have a drink. And shows every Wednesday, and then they do occasional weekend shows. Socially distanced with masks. Just kidding. Almost certainly not.
I was going to say, in Jacksonville, we're actually taking efforts to do outside socially distanced masks. And then I saw pictures from the Nog, and I was like, oh, they don't give a fuck.
No. And that's why I'm not being unreasonable for not wanting to be. Like, if you're someone who feels like you should be taking precautions, then the Nog would not be the place for you. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
It's if you're someone who doesn't give a fuck, then you can go not give a fuck there. It's fine.
Absolutely. Tell everybody about your what you got going on with Immaculate Trash.
Yes, started a T-shirt company that I don't have money for. It's great. If you want something, don't buy it. I'm kidding.
I love them. I've got 4 now.
Damn.
I've got 2 hoodies. I've got the Last Laugh hoodie, which whenever I wear it out, people always go, people who know I do comedy, I always go, oh, is that like a show? I go, yeah, it's a show in Daytona that we do. And now I've got the ones you just brought me, which I'm super excited to wear.
Yeah, see, that if any of our friends are listening to this, be a better friend. See, Brennan...
As soon as you put the post out, I always jump on it.
He got a shirt and a hoodie of The Last Laugh. He got a shirt and a hoodie of Immaculate Trash. From the logo, not just one of the designs, the actual logo to promote the brand. Be a better friend and buy things. I'm kidding. But yeah, ImmaculateTrash.com. I think we only have hoodies up right now because we're getting new stuff for the shirts. But you can get hoodies, and then of course we do customs and all that stuff. So check that out. And then besides that, I'm probably by the summer I'll be back on stage, maybe sooner. It just depends on how quickly things.
Are you waiting for the vaccine and everything?
I'm waiting for the overthrow of the government by QAnon supporters. That's what I'm waiting on. I'm waiting for the government to be taken over by people who think that JFK Jr. is still alive and that he is going to be Donald Trump's
He's in a bunker.
Mate. Yes, inexplicably he's in a bunker, and nothing screams Kennedy like fascist conservatism. So he's in a bunker and he's waiting to be Donald Trump's vice president. And so that'll be exciting. That's what I'm looking forward to, because the free speech, except for the stuff they don't like, is what we'll have. So we can finally get back to comedy. I hate everything so much.
I know.
Fuck everybody. This is the worst part about this is that after this you're not going to be able to do conspiracy anything. It's going to like as a joke to just question things. It's just going to be like, well, QAnon, and then for anybody who doesn't know, they overran the Capitol also inexplicably. Anyway,
yeah, that just happened.
Sorry, it's just been on my mind like all day. I just
Really?
To
The Capitol being overrun has been on your mind?
There's like all these articles coming out, like the governor.
You're looking at me like I know. I'm completely disconnected from the news.
Oh, it's incredible.
I didn't actually know what was happening until my girlfriend texted me, and she was like, "Hey, turn on the news."
Yeah,
because the listeners know this, but as someone who studied politics and history and all that kind of stuff, you just get so like everybody thinks they're right. Nobody wants to agree. And then everyone just wants, they ask you your opinion just to reinforce their own. Daisy and I, because we both study political science, we talked about this at nauseum on her show, but it's just everyone just wants you to reinforce what they think.
Right.
So once I graduated, I like disconnected from all of that.
Yeah.
Like I don't even talk to my family members about even if I agree with them, I'm like, I don't even want to. So I didn't even know the Capitol thing was happening until my girlfriend texted me, and I was like, "Wait, what is happening?"
Yeah. Well, I mean, and most people are not. Most people don't know. First of all, nuance in general is just dead. Yeah. But which politics has an incredible amount of nuance to it. And,
absolutely.
And that's why you have people out there like hanging nooses on the front lawn of Congress to be like, this is for you. And you're like, okay, well, this isn't how it's done. You
this is,
dumb fuckers. Anyway, but yeah, so.
What are these articles about?
So there's a couple articles that came out with, like national security, like people who specialize in, security around, do we got to wait on that? Okay.
No, go ahead. I'll mute it out.
Okay. But it's, security for, like Capitol buildings, but
like
in other countries,
yeah.
They train with U.S. forces, like they do like co-training and stuff like that to like share tactics.
That happens all the time. Yeah,
a bunch of them are saying like there's no way that was just like allowed to, or wasn't just like allowed to happen, or like there's no protocols would ever allow for that to happen without someone allowing it to be the case. So basically, like someone made sure that there wasn't enough security. There's no way there would be like 100,000 people down the street and everybody be like, nah, just have like 7 security guards at the
and
like,
see that's the thing. When I was watching it kind of blew my mind, because I was like, there's no way that, because like you said, like there's, especially after 9/11, like you can't get into a stadium without going through like 4 levels of security,
right?
Let alone the cap. I don't know.
And then also the governor of Maryland said that they had mobilized
I saw that
National Guardsmen, and then they were denied with the report saying that people were overrunning the Capitol, and they were denied 3 times before Mike Pence, I think, is who finally got the ball rolling on it. But like they wouldn't release the National Guardsmen.
Oh, really?
Because DOD is in charge of it, and so Trump just purged most of the DOD.
Well, that's what I was going to say, and he's also in charge of all of that.
Yeah. And for anybody listening, I'm not one of these people that's like...
Yes, he is. Don't listen to him.
No, for real. I think that Trump is an opportunist. I don't think that he's in any sense of the... I don't think he's like Satan or anything like that. I think he's just a huckster. He's like,
he's a grifter. I mean, he's really good at it.
Yeah, Tim Dillon said it best. He said he's a fucking riverboat casino captain that found his way, lied his way into a place.
I love Tim Dillon.
God, he's really the best.
Did you see... we're going to turn this into a podcast talking about other podcasts, but did you see his rant on the Airbnb thing?
Listen to me when I say this. Anything he's ever said, I've seen that. When you pulled up, I was listening to him on Kump's show.
Really?
His old co-host.
And then he had the that guy with the horns and stuff. You saw that?
Yeah, him
the next day. So he's good. Like, I'm an actor. I'm a singer. Nobody wants to talk about that.
Anyway, yeah. So sorry. We'll
we were okay. We're time stamping this episode real bad. In a year from now, when people are catching up on this show, they're going to be like, "What?"
I think most people will remember when the Capitol got overrun by people saying "Q's at me."
Well, and it's so weird too, because this, and I've talked about this before, but when everything first happened with the pandemic, my girlfriend was really worried because we were supposed to move to New York and everything, and like we were supposed to move in April, we had everything set up. And she's like, I think they're going to shut everything down. And me being the pretentious asshole that I am, I'm like, Babe, listen, I studied this in college. This is what my degrees are in. They're not going to shut it down. They've never shut it down. They're not. And then everything got shut down. And I was like, oh boy, like, I guess they're just going to do that then. And then same thing. It's like that scene in Men in Black where he's like, it's always the end of the world. Like, people always think the world is ending. And I'm still sitting here like, people say this all the time. It's fine. And then she's like, turn on the news. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
It's the end of the world.
The best meme about all that was the thing with Ron Burgundy saying, well, that escalated quickly. And then on the bottom, over the course of 4 years.
I saw that, yeah.
But it's so true.
We saw it all coming. This has been happening slowly for 4 years.
Anyway,
let's divert.
Yeah, well, yes. Sorry,
we're gonna get out of politics. Well, it's funny because I have some listeners that have emailed me and they're like, "All you do is talk about comedy on the show. It's always comedy." And then when I talk about other things, people are like, "Hey, get off of politics. Why are you talking about?" And I'm like, "I can't fucking win with you people."
Yeah,
but I love you all so very much.
Listen, if you don't like any of what I said, suck my fucking dick. Find me somewhere and suck my dick. I'm kidding. Don't touch me, please. I don't care for it.
So let's get into it. You've been doing comedy. 10 years?
Yeah, been doing comedy for 10 years. This, as with most comics, the pandemic is the longest in 10 years that I haven't done comedy. I think probably 2 or 3 weeks was at most over the past 10 years probably. So
it's funny because I've been doing it coming on 11 years now, but 3 years. I took like that big break for like 3 years. So it's weird when people are like, yeah, it's been like 3 months and I haven't gotten on stage. This is crazy. I'm like, oh, I went like 3 years.
How much did you do it before that though?
But see, that's the thing is so like, yeah, that's true. Because I started in 2009 and I was doing like open mics every once in a while.
Right. That's not really pursuing like you've done now.
And then when I went to Oklahoma and was living with my cousin who we talked about last week, we were getting on stage all the time. But then I was wasted like doing Arnold impressions and like I was trying to do one-liners and stuff. So I do like one setup, but then I'd tag it with another punchline. And my cousin's like, what is happening? Like,
did Crespo tell you about his one-liners?
Oh, my God. Yeah, he's talked about that on the show.
Some of them are actually pretty good.
Well, he's told me some of them. I'm like, that's not bad. Like, that's like, if you delivered it the way you just told me it, that'd be good.
I think he's just not a fan of one-liners now.
Yeah.
You know, but
well, especially because once he started telling stories and stuff, that he turned into Crespo. So.
Right, yeah.
But when did you start in Daytona? Are you originally from here?
Yeah.
Okay, so born and raised 386.
You know it. Used to be 904.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Jacksonville.
Yeah, till we took that.
Stole it. I guess it was always Jacksonville, right? And they just cut off 386 because of the it was population growth.
A while ago, but they changed a bunch of area codes like Sun and Fun and like if you look on the keypad, that's why they changed them.
Yeah, that's right. They tried to change the slogan for Daytona to open, what was it, open fun or something, open wide fun or some shit.
Really?
Like, oh, dude, it was just totally ridiculous. There's only been 2 things that Daytona has hated as a whole together, and it's that slogan and Truck Week. Truck Week. But anyway, I won't go into that. But yeah, open wide fun or something like that. And everybody was just like, what? Yeah, the world's most famous beach is obviously a fucking joke.
Yeah. Well, now it is. It used to be.
Yeah, but even back then it wasn't. Like, you know.
Well, it's weird because I hear stories about like from my older brother who's like almost 10 years older than me, and like even my parents were like, I guess in the 80s Daytona was a spot.
Yeah.
Like they used to do the MTV thing here.
Right.
And all that until the Red Hot Chili Peppers allegedly assaulted a person.
Well, it was Eminem was the big.
Was it? I don't know. I was always a nerd and I always stayed in my room when I was a kid, so I didn't really.
He did everything they asked. He didn't curse because they said they were going to do live
feeds and everything.
Of straight to MTV doing it.
What
live
year was
and everything.
this?
That was like 2002, I think.
Okay.
Maybe. But maybe 2001, I forget. But yeah, he had it didn't matter. Like he changed the cursing and all that, but it just became like. I think the combination of they always had a problem with having hip hop here because of the racist roots in Daytona.
Yeah.
But having all the crazy white boy
Eminem
fan
fans,
base come
yeah.
out.
That makes sense.
Along with that, they were like, they probably were just mad about race trading. I don't know. But, no, but yeah. So that was the big.
Yeah, because they don't do any MTV stuff here anymore. I know the last time BET was here was like in 06.
Yeah, they pushed out Black Spring Break because of and Black College Reunion because of, again, not to say there weren't problems, but it's the same old story. Like the white kids were problematic. They were like, oh, they party too hard, and then the black kids are like, well, they all commit all these crimes, and it's like, well, it's all in how you frame that story. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, because they still have Bike Week.
Yeah.
And Bike Week and Biketoberfest are the two.
Yeah, more people die during Bike Week and Biketoberfest than any other event, but they'll say like, oh, well, some people got robbed on Black Spring Break. You're like, oh. And what happened to those?
What happened with the triple homicide?
What happened to those middle-aged white people that crashed head-on into a semi because they were drunk? And they always that's what I hate about it. They're always like, watch for bikes. I'm like, you come watch these bikes. See what they do.
Yeah.
So, like, yes, you should watch for motorcycles, but also, hey, motorcycles, stop swerving out of cars. I should hit you. Fuck you. Anyway.
What is that really? He's talking about bicycles, but Tom Segura is like, if I get angry, we're talking about involuntary manslaughter.
Right. Yeah.
So the original question was, we're both from Daytona, and you obviously are more rooted in the city than I am, so that's why I keep getting off track.
Tragically.
So when you started comedy, how did that happen? Because I grew up here. I lived here my whole life. I've been a fan of comedy since I was like 6 years old, and never in my wildest dream did I think, oh, I'll do comedy in Daytona. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I started in South Florida when I was at college because there was a scene down there. And then when I went to Oklahoma, it was under the guise because my cousin was like, oh, we've got a little scene here. But I never thought that there was a scene in Daytona until I got back into comedy, and everyone's like, yeah, Zach's show in Daytona. And I was like, wait, what? And so I'm curious as to, did you just start doing it, or was it happening before you started, or how did that work?
So there really wasn't comedy in Daytona outside of, I don't remember what year Bonkers came in, but I think they'd been here for a while, like late 2000s, maybe even earlier.
Okay.
But there really wasn't a comedy scene. There was Scratch, who's still around. He was a DJ, radio station DJ, not club DJ. But yeah, he was a part of that old guard of guys that there really wasn't a lot of people doing comedy. So if you were anybody who was like in entertainment, they'd kind of reach out to you and be like, hey, do you want to try and do this thing or that thing? I don't know how he got his start exactly, but I know that he left in 2009, and none of us ever really saw his stuff or anything like that. We saw him when he would come. He moved to Vegas, and then I ended up doing a guest spot for him, and that's how like we got to know each other.
Oh,
when he moved back.
And then you look back and you're like, oh yeah,
right. So because I asked him about it, because he said he came back and didn't know that there was a scene. You know, like. And then he asked about doing our show. So the way that our show got started was there was a bunch of people that had done theater and improv and stuff, and our buddy Scott Harrell started the show.
This is the Tiernanog show?
Yeah, the Tiernanog show. Scott Harrell.
Shout out Scott Harrell.
Shout out Scott Harrell was sitting around with Sean Robbins, Daytona comedy manager. Also known as a guy who would drive to shows with us with a pint of black velvet and walk around the block for 2 hours.
Jesus.
That people legit believe, because we would give him our drink tickets.
Yeah.
People, like, whenever we did shows, because it was like his like little, here you can.
Yeah.
And so some people legitimately believe that he was like an actual. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
I'm
hilarious.
I'm like, dude, it's an open mic. Like, why would I bring a manager to an open mic? But anyway, yeah. Him, Scott Harrell, Sean Robbins, and the owner of Tiernanog, Randy, and then and Marty were all sitting around, and they were just like, man, we should like try to do something, because it used to be on Mondays. Okay. There was just nothing on Mondays.
Yeah.
And so we were all back in college then, and it was like, they started that show just as like a one-off, and they were like, oh, it was packed. Like,
was it really?
Dude, every show for the first 2 years, minimum 40 people.
Get out of here.
I swear to God. At one point, Sean Robbins, Minas's shout out Minas Fakraji.
Minas.
His dad had a restaurant called Medex. It was Mediterranean Experience, and they served pizza to like there was a nightclub next door, so like they'd make a shitload of money on the weekends doing pizza. But they had these little portable ovens, and
is that the one next to Razzles?
Yeah. No. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say I've eaten there before. Get the
it
fuck
was
out
next
of
to
here.
where Coliseum was on Beach Street.
Oh, okay.
So, anyway, so. They
Inside Daytona talk.
So they would take they had like portable ovens, and so Sean Robbins used to like they had a deal where they would like bring prep pizzas in these little portable ovens. They would bring them into the Nog,
Okay.
and they'd make pizzas and sell them, and then you'd drink and
Yeah, and so it just blew up.
Yeah, it was like a huge fun event, and it was only once a month back then.
Okay.
So once we went to
So you were a
bi-weekly-
part of that starting.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you are, when I say the Godfather of Daytona comedy scene, you are.
I would say that Scott Harrell is more so.
Okay.
But in 2015, his mom had been ill, and he needed to kind of
Back off.
well he needed to be. She needed supervision.
Yeah.
So he, at first I was taking care of the show for him, and then after a while he said, like I don't know if and when I'd even be able to come back, so I'm going to kind of give this to you.
Okay.
So, and then of course we're going to do a whole inauguration show for Andre. Our buddy Andre is going to be taking over Tiernan Dog Irish Pub.
So you're giving it to him.
Yeah. So like every 5 years, hand it off.
So when you started, you were just doing the Nog show once a month?
Yeah, we're doing Nog show once a month.
But I meant like you. Like, were you like, oh, this is something, comedy is something I want to... Because you've performed all over the country. You headline spots now, and like you...
Yeah, well, so...
Like, you are a comedian now. And so it's weird that you're just kind of like, yeah, we're doing the show once a month, and now it's like, yeah, now I'm...
Yeah, it's a strange...
tour all over.
It's a strange
I mean, you
way
and
to do
Brian
it.
had, before the pandemic, you guys had like a run going all the way through the South.
We actually had to cancel. We had another tour set up, but we had to cancel. Yeah.
But that's crazy that you're doing a show at the Nog once a month, and now it's like...
Oh, yeah, it's weird as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even do... I came in, I think, the third or fourth show. I didn't even do the first couple of shows.
Okay.
Because I was working like 3 jobs. I was working at a liquor store, an internet sweepstakes place, and I was bussing at a restaurant on my days off from the other 2.
Okay.
So
you didn't even you didn't even have an inkling to like do it?
no, I wanted to. I just didn't know how to. I used to like write down jokes here and there, but I never had anything fully written out or anything like that. And then people were just kind of like, "Hey, man, why aren't you?" It's just like, and they're like, "Well, you need to write something."
Yeah.
And so, so I finally did it. And of course, the first time out, I wrote it like a script.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And like,
What do you mean first time out? I still do that.
I can't do that anymore.
No, I'm
right?
kidding.
But
What if I did? That's the one thing when these guys are always looking at their phone. I'm like, do you have it? Did you like write you got it all like on there? You like the whole script is on there? Like, what are you doing?
yeah, I know there's people who are really good that still do that.
Yeah.
And think in that way, write, and then they say what they write.
Yeah.
But I think those people are more writery. You know what I mean? And so
Autistic,
if you're a more writery comic, then it makes sense that if you, it's like Shakespearean almost, you know what I mean? Like it's in prose.
Iambic pentameter. Yeah. It's like
so
right. Yeah.
if the crux of what you're saying is based on how you wrote it, then it makes sense to do that.
Yeah.
But there's also the new beginner thing where you're just like afraid to deviate because you're not gonna,
you forget. That happens too.
Yeah.
Where like you have to have it written out and scripted, because if you don't, you'll forget things.
But that's more of a as time goes by thing. You just kind of slowly, you start with a fully written thing, and then you get down to like
3
sections
lines.
and then you get down to bullet points.
Yeah.
And then now
because right now if you look at, I don't know if you're the same way or not, but if you look at my set list, it's literally like, it'll say like cool mom, heroin dick pic, scar story.
Yeah.
Like it's just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. You go from having the lyrics written out to a set list, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you started doing the Nog, and I know, like I said, there are some people who listen to the show who always get angry we talk so much about comedy, but that's what I want to talk about. And so suck it. So you start doing it, and now are you only doing Tiernan Nog? Like, when do you get into traveling? Was there a scene? Obviously, there's a scene in Jacksonville at the time because I got into Jacksonville comedy in 2013. So I know there's a scene up there. So when you, like, what was the precipice from going from the Nog every once in a while to like, oh, I'm going to do this?
Well, there was at some point the improv troupe had started asking, because a lot of the people from the improv troupe started the stand-up.
Yeah.
But there was also other people who came in around that. And so we had enough of a kind of eclectic group, you know?
Yeah.
And then once we felt like we had enough people, we started doing other stuff like Cinematique.
Yeah, that's a fun show. I done that show.
Which nothing like what it is now.
Oh, really?
When they first did it, it was just like every once in a while they'd be like, "Hey, we're gonna try and do this," and like no one would show up. It was terrible.
Yeah, because when I went last time, I brought like 4 or 5 people, maybe, but it was like pretty full, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Oh, it looked nothing like that. There was no lighting.
Because it was like legit, and and I have to thank you because I was only like not even 6 months back into doing comedy. And I used to, whenever you'd come into Jacksonville, I would follow you and Marcus around like a little puppy dog. And then whenever you'd mention a show, I'd be like, if you guys need someone, I'm available. And now looking back on it, I'm like, just shut the fuck up. But when I got back into it, I was so like, no, I found my calling. Like, I've said this before a million times, but when I first got sober, I was like, I'm going to kill myself if I can't find something I'm passionate about. Because I'm not just going to walk around and be sober, like, and work to die. Like, no, I'm not doing that. So my sponsor was like, well, you love comedy, get back into comedy. And then when I first got back into it, between you and Buck and Christina and Marcus, I would just follow you guys around all the time being like, hey, shows? Are there shows? What shows? What shows are we doing? Hey, you guys got shows? So that Cinematique thing, you started that a while ago.
Well, yeah, so the improv troupe had just kind of been doing basically anywhere they would perform. The second or third time they would do a show there, they would be like, oh, we need to kind of like mix it up a little bit. Let's try and bring in some of the stand-up people.
Okay.
So that led us to do shows at like the Moose Lodge, which were just, I mean, I used to have this disgusting period joke because I just was new and just was like, I'm going to be gross because that's funny. Yeah. And that's the first time I ever went like, oh, like I learned how to like read a room. Yeah. Like I started it and I could see like the way the joke wound up being is because of me maneuvering around how gross it was with like these old people sitting there looking at me. So I wound up the joke, it's not a period, it's the couch joke that I do, which is just a joke about an awkward sexual experience as opposed to like this thing that used to be. I don't even I mean, it's totally unrecognizable, but
you have a very for those of you who can't tell because you are kind of soft-spoken on the mic, but you have a very unique style in that you get in it.
Aggressive and scary.
I was going to say aggressive, but I didn't know how you were going to take that.
No, yeah.
But I love it because I've had Marcus on here a couple times and we talk about like we're both very loud and boisterous, aggressive people. Yeah. And like the stories that you tell and the jokes that you do, it's very much like you get in people's faces and you're like, listen to me. Who do you hate? Who do you hate?
Yeah, I have a joke where I talk about how men don't understand penetration, like straight white men, like a pinky doesn't count. And then I would be like I'd do this thing where I like climb on a table in front of like just the whatever dude looks like he'd be the most uncomfortable with it. Yeah. Like if I saw a dude like you, you know what I mean? But I didn't know him.
Oh, no, yeah, I know.
And I'd climb on the table and I'd say, if I just climbed on top of you, and so I do it to where I'm like facing down on him. Yeah. And I just start slamming my hand on the table. And I'm just like, is that good for you? Did you come? And I'm just like, it's to describe to them how scary it must be to have sex with a man.
But it's so funny too because you're on the mic and you're like, yeah, and so then we started coming. Yeah, no, I know. I've seen you do other jokes where you scream.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I come from a theater background. Yeah. You know, like a lot of people don't know I have a degree in theater.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, I've like directed plays and like
Really?
Yeah.
How have I known you for years and I'm just now finding out about this?
I was a bag of shit through most of, I was like skater punk, like, oh, fuck everything for most of middle school and high school. And then around my junior year, I was like, oh, I got about another year of this and then I got to like be a person. It was like kind of freaked me out. I was like, oh, I better like figure something out, right?
And then, hey, might as well pretend for a living.
Yeah, I went to school on a theater scholarship.
You got a scholarship?
Yeah. I never paid for a single day of college except for the math class I had to go back and take to get my degree.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, breaking news here on your Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy.
Yeah, so got a theater degree, wound up. No, I actually had the opportunity to take that and go to Florida State and everything, and I just decided, I was like, man, like I had people who were going to write me recommendations, and there's a pretty good chance I was going to be able to do that, and I had people like willing to fill out the stuff for me to get scholarships, like people like supporting me and believing in me,
Oh, wow.
But at that point, I was like,
how old were you at that point?
22, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
23, something like that. But yeah, I had just gotten to the point where I was just like, I realized that it was just the thing that I was doing because it was fun and like it was something to do and be passionate about or whatever. But like, I realized that like, oh, I don't want to do this for a living.
Yeah.
Like I could never imagine me doing that for a living. And when that hit me, I was like, oh, I need to not do this. So.
I could just imagine you being like with the beret and the scarf. Do it better.
Yeah, I didn't do that, but I acted as well as directing and everything. So,
oh my God. I can't believe that. I'm just so happy to learn this about you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, the point is I have a theatrical background. So like, and a lot of the people that came from, it was either people who, the majority of the people that we started with at the Nog shows were just kids who did theater and or
nerds.
Yeah, that's, I guess, well, so there was a thing like late 2000s where it became like more of like alternative.
Yeah.
People were doing theater stuff as opposed to just like,
I did theater stuff. I'm not. Yeah. I did the Casements. Is that it? Yeah. The Casements.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did shows over there. What's up, man? Don't come at me like I don't know anything about it.
Okay, all right. Sorry, dude. No, but yeah. So a lot of people with the improv and theater background. So like most of what we did, like people actually like wrote and like performed. Like
that's so awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't. We had no concept of a regular open mic. Like, like what you see now. Like I can't even imagine starting like that. Just like showing up, not knowing people. And
that's the cool thing about it, and also the weird thing is because like it birthed out of this like natural like, hey, let's just do this, and then everyone's kind of involved. Like you said, there's a big group. I mean, you named 4 people to start it. It's not like, because in Jacksonville we have a lot of people who do comedy. I almost said comics. We have a lot of people that do comedy that they'll go and start shows places and stuff, and you're kind of like, what's like what?
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, I went and talked to a bar owner and I was like, what's your slowest day? Let's do a comedy show. And I'm like, I mean, cool. Like it's a stage, it's a room. Like that's awesome. But it's weird because it doesn't have that same, like the Nog is like an institution now. But it is.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. From open micers to people who move to LA and New York and then come back into town to visit. All those people, like a lot of those people do the Nog. Sometimes they make fun of it, but it's like, yo, bro, you're fucking here. Like, I don't know what you're talking shit for. Like, you're on the stage. Like,
it's much like Daytona stuff. It's I can make fun of it, you can't mentality,
Yeah.
Like all the hack comics always get on stage and they'll be like, oh, I was doing this the other day and then now I'm doing this place, and everybody just kind of looks at them like, and like,
come on.
Yeah, you're
come
here.
On.
You're here for a reason. Let's do it. But yeah, I think
that's the shitty thing too is sometimes you'll get like good comics, like people I know that are really funny, and then they'll just start making fun of like the Nog, and it's exactly what you're describing. Like we're all sitting in the back, like, come on, man, like you got to do some material. Like you can't. Do you know how many times we have this show twice a week? You know how many times we've heard this shit? Like, come on.
They get so used to the club thing that they're but you know who doesn't do that shit? Fucking Dave Ross. Dave Ross came through. Who else? Casey James Salango.
Yeah.
Like
it was so I was at that show, and then like a few months later, it must have been like 6 months later, we're watching Cash Cab, just casually watching Cash Cab.
Yeah, he's on
Casey's
Cash
on
Cab.
it.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey.
Yeah. Right before the pandemic hit, his episodes of being on the live at the not the strip. What am I thinking of? Live at the Comedy Store when they were doing the show. But yeah, I mean we've had like 3 or 4 people that have like been on TV.
Like
come
real
tore
credits.
through.
Yeah.
Like, and then of course like the underground guys touring through and stuff.
Yeah.
None of those guys ever say any of that.
Yeah,
dumb
because they
shit,
understand what it is.
Yeah.
It's a stage and a mic, and we're gonna do comedy.
Yeah.
And then you get those guys that, and I'm the most pretentious person I've ever met when it comes to comedy. Like I'm very, you've talked to me before, but it's weird when I came back into it. I was like, this is not just a hobby. Like this is a calling for me now.
It's like a lifestyle.
Yeah, it makes me want to blow my brains out that I even thought that thought, but. But it's true. So, like, when I see guys that leave, guys or girls, I'm just generalizing, but when I see people that leave and then all of a sudden they think, like, oh, I live in LA now or I live in New York and I'm too good for the nog, but I guess I'll do it. And then they like you said, like, they get up there and they just try and make fun of it and everything. And it's like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, oh, cool, you moved to a big city and you have a podcast? Cool, man. Like, so does everybody else.
You know why all the people who don't do that are so good with that? Like, first of all, if they do make a comment about it, it's unique. Like, it's always an original thought.
Yep. Not, oh, look at the moose on the wall.
Exactly, yeah. Or even if they do, it's like funny when they do it. It's like clearly not like, hey, I'm just fucking, yeah. But yeah, like they all understand what this business really is, and they've all done. To act like you've not done those kinds of shows before is so insane.
Yeah,
like it's like, and other comics are in the room, like if you do the
sometimes
nog,
almost exclusively.
Yeah, sometimes it's just comics.
Yeah,
but yeah, if you're doing a show and you are acting like you only do clubs or something, and then you've just graced this bar with your presence, it's like, what are you doing? Like,
well, and that's the thing too, is that anybody, and you know this, I know Brian knows this, Ziola, who we've had on the podcast, Marcus knows this, anybody I've had on here who's been doing it for a while knows all, and I know about it, like all those shitty shows in a bar where they won't turn the fucking TVs off and people are playing pool and stuff. Like, we've all done those shows. Yeah. So to get out there and act like you've never done a show like this before is fucking asinine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's 12 o'clock at night. Yeah, I know there's people playing pool and the cool thing about the Nog is the pool tables are on the other side of the bar. So you can't even, I've done shows there where the mic's gone out and it's not even like the noise hasn't even affected me.
Right.
One, because I'm loud, but two, because like the comedy's done in a spot where it's like right there, like they're right up on you. So it's super intimate, but like to act like, oh, what am I doing? Like, oh, fuck yourself.
Yeah, it's like no one knows who you are, so you don't have to pretend like you're above it.
Yeah.
Like
that's a fantastic way to put it. No one knows who you are, so
yeah, I'm more likely to have some comic you have heard of show up because they heard it was something cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Doug Stanhope came after one of his shows just to hang out because somebody was like, yeah, they do a show here. Like, and then he came and hung out at the bar.
Yeah.
Like, they threw an impromptu mic, which he must have hated. I can only imagine.
God, yeah.
I was like, because I went home and they were, and then they told me they threw a mic. I was like, why would you? He just got done.
Yeah, working.
Yeah, like, what do you?
It's like that scene in Forgetting Sarah Marshall where they're like, come on stage, come on. He's like, it's like work to me.
Yeah.
I don't really want to.
But yeah, it's just a silly thing to go into places like that and act. But anyway, we've had major, not major, but we've had.
Well, it all depends too. Like, I mean, some of those people that you mentioned are big names in comedy circles and stuff. So it's not something to shrug your shoulders at.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk a lot about the Nog because I wanted to bring up the fact that it is a bar in like pretty much downtown Daytona. So does it ever get sketchy there? Have you ever bared witness?
It exists in a state of sketchiness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because I know some of the stories that you've talked about, and I don't want to burn obviously into your material or anything, but there's some things that you've said that happen there that I can never tell if you're joking or if you're serious. Like the ranch dressing and
that's real.
That happened.
That's 100% real. Yeah. There's
now the shooting that was that at the Nog or was that at the bowling alley?
The shooting was at the bowling alley.
Okay.
Yeah, the very little. I exaggerate some things here and there, obviously, because we're storytelling and
that's what we do.
Being theatrical and whatnot. But I don't think I have any straight up lies in any of my stuff. If they are, I've already convinced myself they're real, so it doesn't matter anyway.
Well, that's the same thing. My girlfriend sometimes gets on me. She goes, you could say this instead of that, and it'd probably be funnier. And I go, yeah, but that's not what happened.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Depends on the deviation.
Yeah, exactly. So with the Scar story, I always do that 100% the truth. So when people ask me about it after, I can go, no, that's 100% true story. But then there's other stories where I'll take 2 or 3 stories and kind of merge them together because it's these 3 different things happened and they kind of all happen in the same way.
Right. So you just make
so
it
I just kind of yeah. Like the joke I have about looking like a cop and the lessons I learned from my DUIs. There's 3 different things in that. Those were 3 separate occasions that I was arrested.
Right.
But I'm not gonna. That's a 20-minute tale. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, like the 2 bits that I do where I talk about the 2 weirdest open mic things that have happened. The one guy screaming at the girl and then the one guy.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Well, I always tell it as I start with that guy screaming "fuck you" at the girl and then dropping the mic and then the ranch bit thing. If I was to tell that in real time. Of how it happened, it would be the dude walked up on stage and said, "You guys ever come?" and then pulled out a bottle of ranch and squirted it.
Yeah,
that's not funny.
No,
but the way that I tell it is a 5-minute bit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And it's hilarious.
But
didn't even get the right cap on it. You got the.
Yeah, and see that. I truly don't remember if that actually happened.
No, that happened. Because it's hilarious. That happened.
I mean, he might have had. I distinctly remember clumps of ranch on the ground, and that's why I tell the joke that way.
Yeah,
I didn't actually get a look at the bottle, you know what I mean? But but that's not funny,
No, but it's the way you tell it's funny. So have you ever been? Because there's always jokes. I want to say jokes, but stories that people tell about doing drugs in the bathroom and smoking weed out on the back patio and stuff. So all that is the nog. That's why the nog is the nog.
Yeah.
Because it's just in a constant state of, which is so weird because I think, now tell me if this is the case with you. I think I romanticize the nog in my head. Because when I first got back in and I started going down there with Brian and Marcus, doing the 1.5-hour drive and being out till 2, 3 in the morning, hanging out, doing the mic. The first 3 times I went up there, I ate a huge dick because I'm trying to do my very the gym, right? And everyone's looking at me what the we don't even fucking, what is a gym? And I was yeah, totally. Trying to do jock stories and it's 3 skater kids in the front and a bunch of comics in the back. I'm oh, you guys never played a sport in your life. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's,
or they have and they just don't care.
Yeah,
they just don't care.
Yeah,
that's once you accept that you're in a room full of the most apathetic, not in terms of giving up, but that they most of them don't. Most of the people that hang out there don't really have any aggressive attachment to anything.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's when you can kind of go oh, I can say
that's what
whatever.
Ended up. So it was the 3rd or 4th time I went there, and that's when the mic went out. And you kept trying to fix it, and it wasn't. So I just handed it to you, and I just screamed the Scar story because I was I don't fucking care.
And that was
anymore.
One of your best sets,
and
right?
that was murder.
Yeah,
and I was oh, so if you just go into it with the idea that it could go well or it could go really bad. I don't fucking care. Then it's such a fun room because it's oh, I'm only up here for 5 minutes, and then then we're just hanging out for 3 hours.
And I think also having to sell the bit without the mic for you in that moment, definitely took away any kind of bombastic or not any sort of ego you might have had trying to be so then you always have that kind of defense up. You just can't have it because you got to scream the story.
Well, that's the thing is when I saw it back because you recorded it, and then you put it up online, and when I saw it back, I was that's the best way I've ever told that story.
Yeah. It made you more vulnerable.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was oh, that was perfect.
And I did it on purpose. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it was funny, too, because the people in the front row, when I first got into the story and the mic was working, I had mentioned, oh, yeah, I played college football. And, of course, no reaction. Nobody does. You do that in, a clubby setting or, in that kind of – everyone's oh, what? That's fucking – or, do you guys like football? And everyone, cheers. And everyone just looks up at me. And I go, well –
word?
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm looking at all of you, so I know you didn't play any sports, but just go with me on this. And that got kind of like a chuckle. But then when the mic went out and like you said, like I was completely vulnerable and I was like, I'm fucking doing it. Like, I don't give a shit. Then everyone like all of a sudden like started paying attention. Like people at the bar were like looking out because there's a dude screaming now because there's no microphone.
Now there's stakes.
Yeah. And so that was, but that's the cool thing about the Nog is that for all the shit that people talk about it's like I said, it's like an institution.
Yeah. And
you are partly responsible for that.
And you know who we got to give a lot of fucking credit to for this is Casey Crawford.
Yeah.
Casey Crawford, in 2014, I was ready to quit doing this because we were doing, once a month of the Nog still, but just doing, or maybe we were at twice a month then, I forget. I think it was still once a month. But we were doing, there was some more local once a month type things that would pop up. And so we do all these random pop-up shows, and every now and then you'd hear about some show somewhere and you'd go do that. Like it was very rare that you wouldn't be around town.
Yeah.
And then when Casey started, he was just like, yeah, I'm going to go everywhere. So it
was Casey that...
Casey's the one that was like, because Casey has 4 kids.
Yeah.
Casey was like, yeah, I got a van. We can take as many people as can fit, like who would want to. And it got, for probably about like a year, maybe more. We would go, like, they started asking us to they were like, hey, can you message us when you're going to come? Like, we can't just have 5, 6 people showing up and then having to deal with that on the list.
Yeah.
Like, at first people were cool, and then they were like, hey, this is kind of getting to be a problem. So all the people we're cool with, they were all like, hey, can you message?
So where were you guys going? Like Jacksonville or Orlando?
We basically would split it up through the week. We'd go to Other Bar on Monday, and then the next week we'd go do Hot Potato. At Rain Dogs. Yeah. And then, Tuesday, wherever there was a mic, we'd alternate. And so any pre-sign up shows, we'd just be like, hey, is it cool if, on this day, we'd hit them up like 3 weeks ahead of time.
Yeah.
And be like, and they'd be like, well, you got to kind of do
like
the
a
list.
whole Daytona crew running through.
Yeah. We made like a name for ourselves like that because we would literally just show up with like 5 killers.
So is that when you met like Buck and Crespo and Christina and all them?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it would
Huge
be
shout out to Casey and his band Virginity.
Oh yeah, great band. Listen to
Check
Virginity.
it out.
They're on Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff.
Yeah, he posted those Spotify numbers. I was like, damn,
that's
they're blowing
wild,
up.
Yeah. Because it's like genuinely good. It's not like that Friends band that you're just like, I like it because it's my friends. Like, it's really fucking good.
Did he now? Because he's fantastic. I've done shows with him before. He's hilarious. Did he start doing comedy and then get into the band, or has he always been in a band?
He's always been in bands since he was he played Warped Tour when he was like 15 or something.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, 100%. He's been in bands forever.
Okay, so and then he just started doing comedy like as a fun thing.
It's really fun to have one of your best friends just be good at literally everything.
Yeah,
it's not annoying at all.
I remember when I did the show with him at Cinematique, I was like, man, because at the time, he, like you said, he's got 4 kids and stuff. And I knew you, obviously, from doing different shows in the area. But coming back in, I was like, I don't know this guy. And then he went up, and I was like, God damn it, man, this guy's a fucking murderer.
Yeah, dude. He is even right from the jump, he was already a good writer, good performer, but obviously got better and better. But it used to be, it would just imagine, it would be like me, Casey, Sean Began.
Damn.
Jack Napier and like Marty.
Yeah.
And we'd all like show up somewhere and people would be like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah,
Jack's up there like, I'm on drugs.
Yeah.
Like I'm screaming
sober
at people.
as he's drinking a beer. I love it when he does that. That's my favorite thing.
I had to point out to him that that's funny at first because he legit.
Well, because there's that show at the Nog. Like, I thought I offended him because he kept talking about how he was sober, and he meant sober from heroin.
Yeah.
And then, but he was drinking a Pabst on stage.
You're like, that's
Reserve.
clean. These are different terms.
Yeah. And so I got on stage and I go, yeah, so I'm sober now. Not like Jack sober, like I'm really sober. And the comics in the back lost it. And I was like, oh, I hope he doesn't like get mad at. And then I went up and he was like, yeah, no, it was funny, man. It was real funny. And I was like, oh, thank God. So Casey saved you.
Dude, yeah, I was ready to quit. I had done a guest spot for Scratch when he came back into town because somebody had, back when there was a whole war between this Joke Factory and Bonkers, there was like a War of the Clubs thing in Daytona. Like if you did one, you couldn't do the other. But it's because Joke Factory like undercut Bonkers and like stole the room from them, and then Bonkers had to go find another room. Like,
oh, really?
It was all this like
that's
totally,
weird. When you think Daytona Beach, you don't think Comedy War.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, it did lead Bonkers. It led Bonkers to doing comedy at what it is now a strip club. So that's a fun little.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, good, we found our way to being Super Daytona again. Thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the guy that was running that place, he was a fucking dickhead back then. He's since we've kind of, you know, everything's chill now. But like at the time. Yeah, a lot of ego, a lot of, you know, button heads and everything. Yeah. And that guy was sick that night, and a buddy of mine was in charge, and he needed a guest spot. So he just hit me up. So that's how I wound up doing my first like club guest spot.
Okay.
And then when I did that, it kind of reinvigorated me, but it also kind of sucked because I was like, oh, I got to do this cool thing, but I have no idea how to like get in now. You know what I mean? So I went back the next night and I did another guest spot, and I was like, so I know I want to do this, but I'm not sure how to do it. And I was working a lot, and it was just like the kind of thing where I just wasn't sure how to make all this happen.
Yeah.
And Casey was like, no, we're going out every night. And I didn't have any excuse. I didn't have family or anything that I had to like be home and take care of. And he did, and he was still going out.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost ruined his marriage, like comedy. Like it was rough. Like he would work all day. Back when he had a 9 to 5, he would work all day, and then he would come home.
Hey, honey, I'm home. Let's eat. And then, all right, we're going.
I'm not kidding, like 4 or 5 nights a week for like a year.
Damn.
Yeah. Just mics. And then occasional paid shows, you know, and stuff. But like,
and then someone shows up, it's near Nog, and they're like, hey, can I go up like third? I got to get out of here. In case he's like, shut the, no,
fuck
you can go last. How about that?
Yeah, we're getting we used to work out how to do multiple shows in cities to make the most of it.
Yeah.
Like the Saturday triple that you could do in Orlando where you do Drunken Monkey, Shit Sandwich, and then Sluice. So you
God, yeah.
2 mics in a showcase. Yeah, man, it was nuts. We went hard for a long time.
Did you now in that experience, because now you're a relatively established comedian, like you said, you do tours, and you know, if you show up to a place, it's like, you know, a lot of people in the circles that we run in know who Zach Bennett is. And like you just walk in with your big swinging dick, and you're just like, "Hey, put me on the show."
No,
is that the experience you have now?
No, I mean I haven't done comedy since fucking February. So.
No, I know, but
dude, you know what my last show was? Okay, these are my last 2 shows.
Don't say the Flamingo.
I did a mic at the Comedy Store, and then I came back.
Oh yeah, because you were in L.A. I forgot.
I did a mic at the Comedy Store, and then I came back and I did Andre's Room.
In Palatka.
Oh, and I think I did the Nog in between. So my last 3 shows were like L.A., Daytona, Palatka, and that was the last show. We were supposed to have Mo Alexander come through. That was supposed to be our other big guy. We had Mo Alexander coming in the week the pandemic hit, and they started shutting everything down.
Damn, so those were your last shows?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I can't even honestly consider. I have no idea what people think of me or how I think of comedy right now, to be honest. But
God, that's insane. Yeah, when you first told me you were stopping for a while, I was kind of like, but wait, we don't stop. And you go, yeah, but there's a pandemic. And I was like, so? And you're like, yeah, you fucking idiot.
Who's it really for right now?
Yeah, that's the point that you made to me. And I had to like immediately disregard that and be like, no, just keep going.
Well, that's this thing. If you really feel like, and the other thing is, if it is just for you, that's fine too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, as long as you're being smart and safe about it, you know.
No, for sure.
Most of our friends in Daytona are not.
Yeah.
But
see, that's what we were talking about earlier, is that whole like difference. Because like I said, in Jacksonville, we did an outdoor show, and it was like, it was cold and it was rainy, but it's like, we're not putting all these people inside. Like,
right.
We're staying spaced out outside. Like, that's what we're doing. And it's like you said, but then there are some people who just don't give a shit. And it's like, well, now, like, what? Why are you doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a zealot about it or anything. I think that's kind of absurd too.
Yeah.
Because everybody will find a way to do the things they want to do.
Yeah,
really.
for sure.
You know what I mean? Like Like you'll have people say like, "Oh, you can't go do this," but then they find a way to go to like somebody's birthday. Like everybody's gonna do some.
Like the governor in
variation.
California shutting everything down, then going out to dinner for his birthday, not wearing a mask inside with like 50 people.
Yeah, that dude. That's a whole other level where it's like, so he should be held accountable. But this whole thing where like people are like attacking each other about it, like I'm just personally not gonna do.
Yeah,
But yeah, when it's safe and everything, I'll be back to it.
I'm excited. What do you in all your travels and all the comedy you've done, because you've toured all over the country, what are some of the crazier things that you've done or seen as it relates to just the after hours, after shows? Anything come to mind?
Altercation Fest.
Okay. See, when we were talking about the list earlier, this is when that would be cool.
Okay.
I could
sure, yeah. But that's See, this is the thing. Like this goes back to the stand-up thing. Like for certain guests, I can see why you would need it. But like, I know what the fuck I'm doing.
No,
you just ask me a question, and I know which thing's going to be the most entertaining.
That's true. No, you have a point there. Because I've had guests on. I don't know if we talked about this. No, we didn't. We talked about this before we turned the mics on. But anybody listening knows I've had guests on where we don't have a list or anything, and we're like, oh, we'll just go off the cuff, and it's like, what have I done?
Right.
Like, this was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And then I have guests on where I'm like, okay, like, we know what we're going to talk about, and then we end up never even getting to it because, like, you and I, like, we're having a conversation about something, and then it's like, oh, yeah, ex-drinking buddy, what are some drinking stories?
Well, people are people don't know that most comics are, like, not really that funny in their regular lives.
Oh my God,
they're super socially awkward or don't know how to hold a conversation.
I cannot. Like, I told you this. I drove to Tiernanog one time a couple months ago. I texted you and I was like, "Hey, are they still doing it?" And you're like, "Yeah." And I drove there. I didn't see any cars in the parking lot. I sat outside, but because you weren't there, and you're like, I know you the best, but because you weren't there, I was so awkward and like so uncomfortable. I drove home.
You didn't do the mic.
I live an hour and a half away.
You didn't even
I
go
drove all the
inside,
way
do your
down
time
here,
and leave?
got into the parking lot, and I was like, but like to what you're saying, it's like I'm super awkward, like I get uncomfortable very quickly, and it's so weird because it's like, but then I get on stage and I'm very, like you said, bombastic and loud and aggressive, and it's like you would never guess that as soon as I'm off stage, I like if I don't know anybody there, I'll sit in a corner and like smoke cigarettes by myself, like I don't, and I've got no problem doing that. So it's weird because sometimes like you said, you've been doing it long enough, and like Marcus and Brian, they're all the same way. Like it's like, oh, you don't like we could just talk and it's gonna be great. And then I've had people on where it's like I'll listen back to the episode and I was like, really could have done a better job as a host. I blame myself.
Yeah.
Really, it's their fault, but I blame myself.
It's better to over prepare, but don't feel like you have to stick to it. I guess would be the overlong
the lesson here.
Yeah. So you want me to fucking
do it. You want to go ahead and
as far as comedy goes, Altercation Fest was probably the most badass experience.
Where is that at?
It's in Austin, Texas.
Okay. JT runs that show.
JT
right?
Habersat, very funny comedian. He toured with Eddie Pepitone and opened for him. I got to meet Eddie Pepitone there.
Oh, that's cool.
I made Eddie Pepitone laugh, and I can die now. That's fine.
It.
He was taking pictures with all the comics like outside, and and I walked up to him and I was like, "Hey, do you mind if?" Because he was just like chilling, talking to somebody. I said, "Would you mind if?" He goes, "Yeah, I'd love nothing more. It's what I came here for." I said, "Yeah, you came here to take pictures with sad people." Is that? So he laughed about that. I was on I did one of the shows. Joe DeRosa was a headliner.
Oh, that's cool.
And
Joey Roses.
And he watched my set and he was like, "Hey, it was really funny, man." I was like, "Oh,
damn,
oh, dude, it was fucking nuts. It was fucking nuts." JT like put a thing on the Altercation Fest thing that was like, because I did the first night, so he was like, he was set of the night, kicking off the festival, first timer, crushing it like this, like you're gonna be chasing the set or whatever to like the other people.
Yeah,
like it was like a big deal for me. It was
that's
like,
awesome. When was this?
That was last September.
Okay.
So,
because that was the tour you guys had to cancel, correct?
No, that's the one we went on that tour and then came back, did a couple of Florida dates like South Florida, Panhandle, and then I went on tour with the Glorious Rebellion, and
I forgot.
SFG.
Yeah, you did that,
So
yeah.
I opened for that would be the other. Yeah, that would
sounds
actually
like a wild ride.
opening for metal bands as a comedian was definitely the dumbest and funnest and weirdest thing.
Did you ever get booed?
No, I did have someone. I did the blow your brains out bit, and I had somebody say like, "My cousin died that way, killed himself in front of his mama," and I just wanted to be like, "Well, he stole my material, so I'm glad he's dead." No,
That's the good. What time is this at? All right.
yeah. So anyway, so
He stole my material.
yeah, that was at a show,
He
and
deserves to die.
well, what can you do? No, we were doing a show in Mississippi, and it was at some. I mean, dude, I really thought I'd seen all the dive bars, but this place was just epic.
Really?
They ripped all the seats out that went around the bar, and they put in these boxes to elevate the floor up, and then they put toilet
seats. You did tell me about
It's
this.
incredible.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was.
They weren't functioning toilet seats, though, were they?
They actually had to tape them down so that people wouldn't.
Yeah,
use
that's
them.
smart.
They said they had problems with that.
Yeah.
So. Dude,
God.
oh man, it's fucking wild. But yeah, that was the worst night of all. But the best night was when a lot of the other bands that play, like the local bands, got super into it, and they just thought it was something cool and different. So they were super supportive, and they
that's
would.
Cool.
And oh man, they loved the blow your brains out bit.
Yeah.
We did, the show we did in Baton Rouge. They were just like, I was like, name somebody. I did it like a metal show. I was like, name somebody you hate. And they're like, oh dude, it was wild.
I do love that bit. I've heard it a bunch of times, and still I get so excited when you start. As soon as I hear you start that opening line, I'm like, here we go.
That's how you know that like
find someone in the audience who's unsuspecting, like, oh, you're gonna love this.
I'm just not the person to be like, hey, tell me a joke. I'm like, I can't even begin to describe to you how this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
people at my restaurant do that all the time. They're always like I've talked about this on the show before, but like sometimes we'll try to work comedy into a conversation, like especially if I have a show coming up and they're locals. I'm like, yeah, you should check out the show. But it's always, tell us a joke. Nope, doesn't work that way. Tell you about how I used to be a masochist and I got all these scars, but you're trying to eat your dinner. I don't think this is going to work out.
That's, yeah.
You want to talk about my alcoholism or how I've been arrested 8 times?
You got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That usually anytime I trick them a little bit, I'll say how I tell them the joke is I say like, I just can't tell you one of my jokes. I don't do jokes like that. And they're like, no, come on. What do you got something? And so here's how I'll explain how I can't tell you a joke of mine. I'll tell you the story of how I declined my offer to audition for America's Got Talent. Somebody emailed me and said you should apply for, you should send in a clip. Mm-hmm. And I said I'm not going to do it. It's a bad idea. And they said, like what's the big deal? Just so, like what's the worst that could happen? And like you got a one-liner, right? You got something quick that you could just. And I said, well, okay, so like, hey. Everybody likes a cream pie till they turn into people, right? And then like that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And then so
everyone likes a cream pie until they turn into people.
That's not even see, this is how long it's been. That's not even the joke. I literally just had to throw that in just now. I just fucking forget. But anyway, so the point is I have to like throw in something about that just to show them how it's not my style.
I sometimes will take the opportunity. Like if I tell you no twice and you're still gonna like, no, come on, then I'll do the heroin dick pic joke.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
You want to really prove your point.
Yeah. It's like, all right, you want to hear it? I would never send dick pics, and then I sent a dick pic to a girl. Luckily, that'll never get out because she overdosed on heroin 2 weeks later. And then everyone looks at me like, you told me. You said 3 times. Tell us a joke.
Now you have a joke.
There you go.
Okay, so I know you're pressed for time. So format-wise, did you want to hear drug alcohol stuff? Yeah. Okay. What kind of time we got? What are we looking at? I'll keep
we got
the format. I'm good.
We got plenty of time.
Okay.
We still have 30 more minutes if we're gonna push it all the way to the wire.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So we can hold off. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. Okay.
We gotta, yeah, because I love, especially with someone like you, who's been doing it for a long time, I love to just sit and talk comedy and talk shit about stuff like that. But I know we got to stick to the show format. So we got to have. Last week I did it with Trevor Johnson, and we didn't get into like a drinking story until like the last like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was one story at the very end. My buddy who listens called or texted me. He goes, "The fuck was that?" I was like, "What? You was gonna talk comedy for an hour and 20 minutes?"
Yeah.
And then you had one drinking story at the end. I'm like, "Yeah, this is what we like to talk about."
Here's the thing. They're not wrong. Comedy,
No, I know.
Comedy is so fucking dumb.
It is.
It really it's what we enjoy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's, I mean, it's.
It's like talking sports to someone who doesn't watch sports. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
they're just kind of like, okay, and
Yeah.
like,
Well, I lived with a bunch of friends and like when they were all in a fantasy league together, and it's all they. I would just pray for football season to end.
yeah,
We'd go like disc golfing together, which is the whitest sentence I've ever said. and I would be like just miserable. Like it was just another place for them to talk. I'm like, can we fucking hang out?
yeah,
And they're like, they got their phones out, looking at their like scores
lineups
and stuff.
and stuff.
Like,
Yeah. So I do understand when people say that, but it's probably the most difficult thing that I have as a host, and something I need to get better at is when I get around people that I enjoy their company and I like talking about comedy.
yeah,
Then it's kind of hard for me to be like, no, let's talk about something else. Like,
right, yeah.
It's like, no, tell me more about Altercation Fest. What happened at the Nog? Is that a true story?
You're still at a point where you enjoy this, which is good
Yeah.
because it eventually you'll be like you just like I'll be honest with you. Part of the reason why I'm so comfortable with doing this is because I've done this a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and not in that like, oh, I've done. I just mean that like you've got a finite number of good stories, much
Yeah.
like your regular life. Like if you're gonna tell like a story about your youth, you've got your go-tos. You know what
Yeah,
I
oh,
mean?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because most of the time, shit's boring. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like the majority of shows and stuff that we do, like if you were just to be like, hey, what happened at this show? You'd be like, well, I showed up and no one was prepared and we started 20 minutes late and the audience was not that great, pretty light. I did okay, and then
Yeah.
I drove an hour and a half home.
Like, that's not, that's,
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh, wow, that's not riveting.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that's the norm, huh?
Yeah.
like, because people always think that, like, when they hear you do comedy, they always think, like, the first thing is just like, oh, wow, that must be so, because they instantly think of, like, Netflix, people in a theater,
Yeah.
or,
Comedy
like,
Central presents.
or, like New York clubs, like,
Yeah.
People sitting around with little
Packed
like,
rooms and
little candle on the table,
Yeah.
and you're like,
it's not what we do.
yeah. Anyway, I'm amazed people come to like I look at comedy flyers, and I'm like, who saw this and went, all right, like
I never thought
mean,
about that.
I mean, they're hideous. They're really disgusting.
I know,
like, they're
I'm so
poorly
bad at
made.
them.
They're not
They're
good and
like jammed together. It looks very
there's no
like,
border on the fonts. You're
yeah,
just like
just like
just like pastel pink on like blue, and you're just like,
Who
I can't
did
even
this?
read this. I wouldn't know how to find the show if it was appetizing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I was like,
God, I didn't even think about that, but that's so true. There's so many flyers that I've been on where I'm like, this is not good.
And you see these lineups, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
is someone gonna fix this? Like, did you forget somebody? Did you have a headliner? Like,
Did you forget somebody?
did you want to bring in anybody who knows what they're doing at all? Like, can you imagine that if you did them like sports lineups? You're like, hey, who's playing? And you just like name all the like third and fourth string people. And it's like, did you want a quarterback for this game?
It's a bunch of backups.
And you don't even have a quarterback. It's a bunch of bunch of backup linemen and no quarterback. And you're like, well, this isn't
This is gonna work.
Yeah.
We're gonna win this game.
And then you're like, who's on the other team? You're like, same thing.
Yeah. It's brutal.
God, comedy.
Comedy.
Comedy. Okay, yeah. So, anyway, I'll get into the. So, it's not a great transition, but I don't think it really.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't matter.
No.
No.
Nobody's listening.
So I think we've talked about this. Is that I was like raised in AA? Have we talked about that?
Yes. Yes, we have.
Yeah, my parents actually met in AA and like got married, had me. Like they literally like turned their lives around. Like I got so fucking lucky. I was literally like a year away from like if they had met somewhere else like and not gotten their shit together, I'd probably be
if they had met a year or two prior.
Yeah, if they like met in a bar instead of in an AA club,
oh
like God knows what the fuck I'd be like, you know.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting.
That's a fun little...
Yeah, a little butterfly effect thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was lucky enough to kind of, they had both hit like the bottom of the the end of their road, bottom of their barrel, whatever. That's not the right phrase. You know
Rock bottom.
Rock bottom, thank you. Yeah. But yeah, so like I grew up in I literally thought that everybody didn't drink until I remember like when I was like 9 or 10 being at a friend's house and seeing their dad drinking, I was like, oh my God. Like I went home, I was like, did you know that like...
Did you know so-and-so's dad?
Yeah, like and it sounds weird to people, but when you think about that, like my entire childhood revolved around AA, because it's like, it really is like, at its worst, it's like a cult, and at its best, it's a support group, you know?
Yeah.
And you tend to, and you have to change your lifestyle a lot of times, you know, if you're someone who is really trying to stop whatever.
If you really want to change, because that's what happened to me. Is I went into rehab in 2013, and I didn't get sober until 2018.
Right.
Because it's very like you can get living in a halfway house and being in a rehab. You can get kind of like, no, I'm gonna be sober for the rest of my life. Like I'm gonna do this, and then once you move out of the halfway house and you get your own place, and then you're 25 and you're like, I overreacted. Like, I'm good.
It's actually easier in the halfway house.
Yeah.
to stay sober because you're like you're held accountable.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where it's like if you don't change your lifestyle or your thinking, and this is just my experience, which you know from being raised around it, but like if you don't switch that, then you're not changing anything.
Right.
As soon as you get out of that environment where it's like, oh, if I drink, I'm going to get kicked out and be homeless, so I just won't drink right now. Well, as soon as you're out of that environment, it's like, well, fuck it.
Yeah.
So that's why, and I talked about it on episode 6 of this show, was the last time I drank was happenstance. I had a friend in town who found me and rushed me to the ER, and then that's when I was kind of like, yeah, I don't think I can keep doing this.
Yeah.
Like something like this isn't going to work.
Well, a lot of people don't realize, even though your friends might not mean it in a negative way, they don't have the same mindset as you about it. Yeah. So they're going to still be the same them. So like, I mean, there's people that have had to, literally cut off other people from their lives because they're not willing to support them, in that journey. If the person you hang out with most is like drinking all the time, they're going to want you to drink with them. It's just the way it is, And if you're like, hey, my whole life fell apart and it has been for a long time.
Because I've had Savannah, my girlfriend, on this podcast, and she drinks wine, which works out for me because I was never a wine drinker. But when we first started even I make my sobriety very well known. Like, I talk about it on stage, and I anybody who knows me, longer than an hour knows that I'm sober. So it's funny because she knew that when we first started dating, and she was like, well, I drink wine, and if that's an issue for you, then this obviously isn't going to work. And it was never an issue for me. But I think one time maybe she's mentioned like, oh, that would be kind of cool if we could like sit outside and like have a drink together, like once in the 3 years we've been together. So it's like you said, it's one of those things where it's like, nobody in my life, especially people close to me, would ever let me come within 100 yards of a drink willingly because they saw what happened.
Yeah.
And they see what continues to happen when I do that stuff. So it's like if I meet people, like you said, and they're like, come on, let's just do one. I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind.
Yeah.
Like, I'm leaving.
And that was the thing about, my parents, like, my dad was like, basically, like his dad was an alcoholic brick mason that like went around wherever work was, so he was just never home. And when he was just a drunk, abusive dude.
Yeah.
And then
the good old days.
And then you know how it was. Probably I think he had like 3 other families or something. You know how you used to be able to do that
before social media.
Yeah. Apparently people are still trying it, which is fucking wild. It's like, damn, dude.
That's ballsy.
Yeah. Anyway, his mom was, schizophrenic, and like in and out of mental institutions. So he just was. I mean, him and his little sister were just always at home
on their own,
and like raised by their elderly great aunt half the time. Like my dad grew up hustling pool and selling drugs. That's like how he survived until he was old enough to get a regular job. And by that point, he had already been doing all this illegal shit.
Why would you get a regular job?
Yeah. So he was just like, well, fuck it. So that was like how he started off. And he'd done construction and tried to clean his life up and then gone back to it and all this stuff. And my mom had like lived this crazy life. Like she was married to a Hell's Angel at one point. And
what?
Like, yeah. So, but both of them became, when they got sober together, they took turns going to school and taking care of me. And they both got their degrees in drug and alcohol addiction. Like back when there was only a 2-year degree, and it was like a social work degree was specified. Like there wasn't any real like what you can get now, like master's degree.
Yeah, now rehabs and stuff have blown up to the point where it's a cottage industry. Like you can go get a doctorate in alcohol counseling and stuff. And
so they raised me in an environment that revolved around AA and everything. It just was the way it was. Like all the picnics, all the stuff, like and
all the get-togethers. Yeah.
And when you're a kid, you don't know that. You're just like, oh, like
that's Uncle Bob. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That's the group of people. So like I had a very different upbringing than a lot of people because of that.
That's insane. Yeah. Because I grew up around people who drank.
Right.
So it's so weird to.
And most people do.
Yeah.
It's like the common experience.
So it's so weird to think like. I could just see like coming home being like, do you know Kyle's dad had a beer?
Like my uncle used to have a beer every now and then, like on my mom's side, and I'd see him and I'd be like, is he gonna be okay? And she'd be like, yeah.
So
that was real little.
Because I know you have drank before, correct?
Yeah.
You've never because I've met people who are like, no, never touched this stuff. Both my parents were alcoholics, so I just never. And I'm like, what? Like it destroyed their lives. Aren't you curious as to how awesome this elixir is? But
that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, right? Isn't that how everybody looks at it? It's got to be so good if people are willing to destroy themselves for it.
Yeah, I
have you ever gotten like fucked up?
Yeah. Well, okay. So when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I did the whole skater punk thing. That's just like.
Were you straight edge skater punk guy?
No. That wasn't even a thing.
You're a little older than me.
I mean, straight edge was a thing, but not like. I mean,
I knew a lot of punk kids that were straight edge.
Yeah. No, I hung out with like my older cousin and some of his friends, and they like got me into skating, and it was like the first time I've ever felt like it was something I was like really good at.
Okay.
Like I got into. I did a little bit of BMX, a little bit of skateboarding, and inline, and so I just typical '90s kid into all the extreme sports stuff. But I was actually like I was like a very low level. Me and my best friend were like sponsored inline skaters. Like,
really?
Yeah, we were.
I used to inline.
We were
Get
part
out
of
of
it.
here.
Yeah. We were
Team Thrown Twos, baby.
Do you have thrown? What did you say?
I had a Team Thrown Twos.
Team Thrown Twos. Okay, yeah. I had K2s, Backyard Bobs.
Yeah,
all those
K2s were the go-to for a lot of people.
Solomons,
What do you know about skating?
Dude,
you know Braxton?
Yeah. Braxton Martin.
Shout out.
Yeah, me and him played in a band together.
Get out of here.
Yeah. When he was like 15, we played a county fair together in this terrible band. A lot of fun. Shout out Braxton. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, he's still tearing it up.
It's amazing how Braxton knows literally everyone. This is such.
Well, I grew up with him. We went to middle school together.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, and then his best friend was Taylor Rizzo, who I played soccer with when I was like a little kid. And then we grew up, and then Taylor moved out to L.A. Now is the producer, I think, on Doug Loves Movies podcast.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
I almost said Doug Stanhope because we were talking about Doug Stanhope earlier. Doug Benson. He works with Doug Benson.
That's fucking wild.
But it's such a small world. And then Braxton's still out there skating, tearing it up.
Dude, yeah, he's had like his spleen removed and shit. He's like the Dave Mirra of skating. He's just had like everything taken. Well, minus the suicide.
We're in our 30s now.
Yeah.
And he's like posting like just shredding. I'm like, all right, man.
I think the last time I tried it, I had like turned 30, and I had a pair of skates that I had bought way back, and they just kind of were like sitting around. And man, I mean, I skated one day and I just felt like I got hit by a truck. I was like, no, it's not for me.
This guy's still falling over on concrete. And he's like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, dude, he's fucking nuts.
So you were a skater punk.
Yeah, so, just growing up like that, it just comes with the territory at some point. I started when I was like, I'd always like done all that stuff when I was little, but like getting to be about 12 or 13 was when I got hanging out with my older cousin and all them. And so they wanted to like drink and smoke on the weekends and be, beat the cool kids.
Rebellious. Yeah.
So yeah, my first experience with it was them lying about what Long Island iced tea was, and like having the pre-mixed 5-in-1 drink without anything in it. And so it's just straight liquor.
Yeah.
So that was the first alcohol that I'd had.
Man, that's rough.
Yeah. And then we drank Old Milwaukee. Yeah. And then they were like, we're going to go out on a paddle boat. And we went on a paddle boat with a cooler, and the paddle boat was too heavy. And they were saying they were going to throw me out instead of the beer.
Oh, God.
And then they all wanted to go skating drunk, and I was like, "This all is terrible.
This is the worst."
Yeah, that was my first. That was my introduction.
Was that like a? Did that become like a weekly occurrence or a monthly occurrence, or was it just that one time?
For me, it was. I would only do that kind of stuff whenever I knew that I could like stay the weekend at somebody's house.
Okay.
Because I was hyper paranoid that my mom. I was like, well, she's an expert.
Yeah.
like
literally.
She did wild shit, and she will immediately just know.
Yeah.
I was very paranoid
That's
about
how my mom is. I could do one shot. As soon as she hears my voice on the phone, she's like, "You been drinking again?"
Yeah.
I'm like, how the fuck? I could go into work and work like a 7-hour shift, half in the bag. Nobody notices.
Yeah.
And well, I'm sure they notice. I just don't think they notice. But do one shot, and I talk to my mom on the phone. She's like, "You're drinking." I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I'm not. I never liked it when I was younger. I never liked the feeling of it. I'm a control freak. Like I don't like being out of control of myself. And also, like, people also don't like take into account like what it's like to like be 8 and hear somebody be like, like, yeah, I ruined my life, I lost my kids, and like you're just sitting in an AA meeting. Like
that's true, because all the stories that I have from AA I got when I was older, obviously, because I didn't even really know. Like I knew about it from movies and TV, I think, but I didn't know about it until I was in it. So I couldn't imagine being a little kid here and like.
Yeah, if my dad couldn't get a sitter, he would just make me sit through a meeting with him.
Yeah.
So like, because he would get me for the weekend, and then he'd be like, he would try to get somebody to watch me or something, or what he did the majority of the time, which is over at Foot Court. You ever been to Foot Court in Daytona? It's on MLK in Washington.
Okay.
And in the early '90s, that was a real fun neighborhood. Crack boom still winding down. And
crack boom winding down.
And it's just me and another kid that was like my best friend at the time, because we would always have to be at these meetings.
Yeah.
And we would just, it'd be like, all right, go play. And just be running around MLK, just like
Sin City.
Like, dude, it was fucking ridiculous. But yeah, anytime that they were like, if it was at nighttime though, they wouldn't let me. So if it was a nighttime meeting, I'd have to sit in there. So
so you're 8, 9 years old hearing stories about like,
oh yeah,
crashing cars, wives leaving,
people talking about sucking dick for heroin and shit, and like because he would take me to NA meetings too. And I mean, they would a lot of times the NA spill over, but like
it's all based on the same thing.
Yeah, it was wild, but like so that stuff was always in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
So, but I also wanted to be. I didn't want them to not think I was cool.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, so I only did it a little bit, when I was younger. But any time where I felt like I had to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like I
stuck between a rock and a hard place kind of thing. Like, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was young, I had very low tolerance. I would just, immediately be like, so,
there you guess.
And then the first time I smoked weed, I've told that story on stage before, where I went surfing at the Sungalow Pier, which is off of like Daytona Beach shores, and we had to like. It's so funny, like thinking about how like Tom Segura's got that bit talking about like what it's going to be like to explain to your kids now that weed's legal.
Yeah,
he's like, well, Daddy used to have to get in a car with a stranger and then drive like that whole thing. Like
tells a story about the lady answering the door with the shotgun.
Yeah. So I think this will be definitely like one of those things. Like we had to, like, well, I was 13, and we had to go into this there was a little patch of woods that all the surfers, because you couldn't smoke on the beach unless you had like something you could hide real easy or whatever. But like all the like younger kids would like go to like there'd be beer cans back there and stuff. There was a little patch of woods across the street. Mm-hmm. From the beach, so we'd like walk over there. And so the first time I ever smoked, we all sat in a circle, when we're back there, and like carried our boards over there and like pass around a bowl. And then so I just remember being like, oh, I don't I don't feel anything. And they're like, oh, yeah, that happens sometimes, It's just
Yeah.
the way it is. And as soon as we stood up, I just felt like I got hit with a ton of bricks. I was like, whoa. Like, I mean,
I can't move.
It kicked my ass. I was just like, no. And then, I mean, the incline for the street that you had to walk back up, I mean, the incline is fucking minute. But I was like just so over dramatic. I was like, I can't. I had somebody else carry my board. I was like,
really?
Yeah, I was on like my hands, like it's like not even a 45-degree angle. I'm like, no, it's a mountain. It's a concrete mountain.
It's a mountain.
And then my mom had given me $10 for like to go to the store for snacks or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we walked down to 7-Eleven. We went in there, eyes are all bloodshot and everything. And I'm not kidding. This is such a 90s sound. I got $10 worth of donuts and Mountain Dew. And then I put it on the counter. And the guy looks at us and he goes, oh, you work up a big sweat surfing. And he like gave me a little wink.
Give you a wink and a nod.
Yeah. And then I went, and nobody like told me that like you can't swallow when you're smoking. Like if you swallow.
Dry mouthing on it.
And I guess I had swallowed some smoke and it was like still, we had like just smoked. So it was like right there.
Yeah.
And I just felt a burp and I went, and this cloud of smoke just like came out of my mouth and it like went into his face and the guy was like, get the fuck out of here. So.
Did you get the donuts?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, we paid him. Yeah. And then my friend out loud goes, I think he knows. Like, we have to go now. So, and then they all went, they were like, we're going surfing. I was like, I'll die. I will die. I'm not doing it. I laid on the beach for, I don't know, 2 hours or whatever while they surfed and just, I had no idea it was even that amount of time.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, obviously I wouldn't now, but in college, my roommate was a huge smoker and that was his thing. And then I was the drinker. Like obviously I played football, but like in the off season when I stopped playing, like everyone like who wanted to like drink and rage would come, like we would all hang out. And then if they wanted to get high and just chill, they'd hang out with him. And it was such a like dichotomy because it was it's like an odd couple thing. But I know a couple of times he would get me to smoke with him. And I just was like, I don't like what you were saying about drinking and being out of control. That's how I felt when I smoked. I was like, I don't like this at all.
Yeah. Well, the first time I thought it was just because of being out, like, oh, I need to not be out when I do it, that kind of thing. Like, it was like too stressful for me. And also it was the first time and all that. So I thought maybe that's what it was. And I had smoked a couple times after that, and I just was anxious the whole time.
Yeah, that's
like,
what happens to me. I get super, because I'm already anxious. And I get like way more anxious and paranoid. Like I have to be like in a room by myself, like watching TV or something. And like that's the only time I'm comfortable. And even then I'm like, I don't like this.
Yeah, that's me sober. But
just all the time.
Yeah. But yeah, so like for me it was definitely like just a thing where like I just knew, I'd done it a few more times after that, and I was just like, dude, I cannot. This is not for me,
Plus it's so much fun watching other people that are fucked up.
Yeah.
Because that's where I get some of my material from. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to watch this asshole.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the amount of material I have from hanging out with Jack is like...
Yeah, that's...
an unbelievable amount.
Jack.
You need to have Jack on your show at some point.
I will.
That would be wow,
We'll
like,
go back
hey,
and forth trading stories.
You got these stories. Jack's like, yeah, this chick died in front of me. You're like, all right, well...
Here we go.
That's a lot.
Well, it's funny because I told you before the mics got out, I was like, yeah, it's weird. Like, I've had people on talk about getting arrested a bunch, and then I've had people on where they're like, yeah, one time, like Trevor was talking about the first time he blacked out, and I was like, all right, here we go. He's like, yeah, I just drank a lot, and then I got in the car, and when I opened my eyes, we were 45 minutes away. And I was like, all right, cool.
Jesus.
But he had a really funny story about Kyle Kinane. I don't know if you saw the clip about how he got drunk and fanboyed out on Kyle Kinane when he did a show in Jacksonville. That was hilarious. But like I said, it's all over the map. Like I have certain things that have happened to me where I tell people and they're like, no way. And it's like, yeah, it's not. I'm not proud of it, but that happened.
That's another part of that coming from that world. Like, like I hear about like people tell me these stories. I'm like, and then did you lose your kids? They're like, no, I don't have any. I'm like, pussy.
Oh man, all right. This is fun, man.
Yeah, man.
When you're coming back into it, once everything's safe, we're gonna have you back on so we can talk more comedy.
Okay, yeah. I need to.
So you guys can all suck it not wanting to hear about comedy.
I need to write more. I need to actually.
Have you done any writing during the pandemic?
No, not one word. No, I tried to write a little bit when bars were starting to reopen, before they did like the re-shut down and then
Yeah.
reopened again. Like at one point I was like, I need to try and write something. It was, beyond abysmal. I like wrote down a sentence and went, ugh.
I don't even remember how to do this.
Yeah.
Oh, man. We'll plug everything one more time, especially your clothing brand, because I really enjoy it.
Go to Tiernan Hog Irish Pub. Enjoy the last laugh. Follow them on Facebook and stuff. If you're in Daytona area. If you're not, then who cares? Immaculatrash.com.
Boom. Immaculatrash.com.
Buy something. Don't buy something. Doesn't matter.
No, buy something. It
Buy
does matter.
something.
You're very bad at self-promotion.
That's fine. I'm doing. Look, let's not pretend like you came to the place where I'm doing manual labor
That's
to do
true.
a podcast
I did.
with me. And
I
that's
did.
the
But
state
this is
we're in.
fun. And we're going to have Rob on tomorrow, which
Hell yeah.
you guys will all hear in the universe of the internet in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us again. I'm Brennan Tassif. Check out the website, BrennanTComedy.com, for all my upcoming dates. Brennan T Comedy on all social media. My guest today, Zach motherfucking Bennett.